Well, it was just recently the Nigerian National Assembly failed to pass the bill calling for the introduction of diaspora voting into the country's electoral schedules. Now, this was met with mixed reactions and has been generating conversations in the country and even outside the country, with millions of Nigerians living outside the country and remitting back to the nation's purses, calling for an opportunity to be a part of the electoral process makes sense to many. Now, however, some supporters of the National Assembly's decisions have said that this may be employed to the benefit of electoral malpractices. Like Nigerians in the diaspora, the country's women are also unhappy with the legislature. 5 bills proposed as part of the Constitution Amendment and all involving females were rejected. This is causing furious reactions from Nigerian women, and it is rightly so. Today on The Square, we will look at the fate of Nigerians in diaspora and the involvement of women in the race as the clock ticks closer to the 2023 elections. Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman. Well, more than 15 million Nigerians live in the diaspora, and they bring back millions of, billions of dollars every year to the purse of the Nigerian government. These Nigerians, however, don't have a say in who becomes what in their country of origin, as the Constitution doesn't provide for a diaspora vote. While this may have been defensible, some years ago, the large number of Nigerians trooping out of the country every year has made it a decision that may need to be revisited. As of 2 years ago, Nigerians in the diaspora remitted more than $20 billion into the country's purse, and according to the President, Muhammadu Buhari, this was vital in funding the budget. The continuous absence of a diaspora vote in the Constitution has for some years been questioned, and when the opportunity to make it work came, it was surprising to see it rejected. Joining me now to look at this is Nweke. He's the Chair-Emeritus, Board of Trustees, Nigerians in the Diaspora Organization in Europe. Collins, good to see you and thanks for your time. Now, I know you've been following closely developments back home in Nigeria. What do you make of the decision of the National Assembly not to pass the Diaspora Voters Bill?
Appalling, quite unspeakable, Sulaiman. Sometimes I just wonder what history will tell of us who are actually occupying this Nigerian space at this time, when such history is written some 50 years from now. Just the same way we read the pages of history today and follow the discussions about the disenfranchisement of women out here in Europe who couldn't vote. Here in Belgium, where I am, it was in 1931 that women could finally vote. And so when we read the history, the pages of history of those years, we actually shiver at the fact that such a question could even be asked in the first place, And I believe that in 50 years' time, when people begin to read Nigeria's history and, play back the sort of conversation that we're having now and see that there are legislators in Nigeria who have difficulties letting their fellow Nigerians who are living outside the country and contributing immensely to the development of the country, that the question could even be asked whether they should vote or not. I think history will not remember them well. And, when they go back to bed at night, I hope they will cast back their mind and think of, this sort of thing and actually begin to, think differently and act differently. This is appalling. And the time has come to call people out. The time has come to, begin to make the pendulum swing differently.
Well, have you tried to, look at some of the reasons why they rejected, being a part of history. It's a chance to be a part of history, as you rightly said. Looking back to what has happened in Belgium, some of those key voices are still very much there in the history books, that they've been so empowered that now women can vote. But for Nigerians, having a proof, a waterproof voting system could be a concern. Have you been able to also look at some of those concerns as enunciated by these legislators?
I think they are laughable. Let me say, about 10 years ago, a little more, when I was the chief executive at the headquarters of Nigerians in Diaspora organization, Europe, based in London, I could imagine that it was okay for legislators to ask those kind of questions about the security of the vote and, the manageability of the voting process in diaspora. But then, of course, at the time, we took time to actually explain to them how these things work. Nigeria is not going to be the first country or an exception to that. So it is done everywhere, and there are ways and means of doing so. And very importantly, there are Nigerians in diaspora that are actually helping to manage the voting processes in some of these advanced nations. So Nigeria has the capacity to actually set it up. So when those questions were asked in those days, we took pains and trouble to explain it, and they understood and moved on to other arguments. When those arguments come, we always, explain them very well. Now, for them to be bringing up such excuse at this time, when Nigeria has biometrics passport system, so which means that when our passports are issued out here in the embassies and consulates and high commissions, that our data are captured, and so we are already in the system. So you know who is coming to vote and who is not coming to vote. So for those questions to be asked about, who will be eligible and so on and so forth, is just fishing for excuses. And
well, Collins, let me jump in here. Listening to you giving, your time at the office, Nigerian Diaspora in Europe, sometimes these same politicians make the trip to Europe and other places where we have Nigerians to canvass, for votes or sell their manifestos. Isn't it ironic that these, group of persons that you visit can't vote for you?
That's the irony of it. And sometimes it leads you to ask if they actually know what they want. Now, when they come out here to canvass for votes, essentially what they are telling us is, yes, we recognize the power that you have. We recognize the fact that through you, families are sustained in Nigeria, and you actually step in places where government is failing. And so we know that you wield enormous influence over some of the electors, those who are registered to vote in Nigeria. Please use that influence to get them to vote on our behalf. And then when we ask the question about, what about us? Shouldn't we be in a position to vote as well? The story changes. But I'll tell you something, Sulai. Those were conversations that we had, say, half a decade ago, because I believe that the vast majority of the legislators are actually sold to the ideas. So preaching to them is like preaching to a convert, because they are already converted to the idea. I think what has happened here is that the process was mismanaged by the institution of government that was supposed to actually handle this effectively and make sure that from both sides of the political aisles that people are galvanized and actually get them to do what they ought to do. So I think that's the issue. I think the issue was that not that the will isn't there. I believe there is sufficient will, but the process was mismanaged by the institution, the entity of government that should have done what they ought to do.
Well, I know you're not new to politics. You on your own, you've been able to also, give your bit, grassroots speaking now in Belgium. Perhaps are there things that politicians on the continent, specifically in Nigeria, should know on how to, lobby and ensure that some of these demands that are genuine in any case, because it's still, I'm still trying to make sense of it, that you jump on a plane, make that journey, and go talk to some important people, in your country who live outside. Still, they can be a part of the process. Help us make sense of how lobbying. Now, you already said these people are already in on the idea of having diaspora voting. So, what more can we say to ensure that this is revisited to ensure that coming elections will include these Nigerians who are outside?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an all of society affair. I say this because I know that diaspora voting as a topic in itself is not exclusive. I believe that the legislators, some of them, I don't believe that they are in the majority, at least as of today. Like I said, they are sold to the idea. I mean, previously they were kind of overwhelmed or ruled by fear of the diaspora being able to actually determine the outcome of election, just like women. You mentioned women at the beginning because they are also a group that was, disenfranchised. Now, rigging, both buying and all of that are still very rich in Nigeria. And so part of that fear is we might not be able to buy the diaspora vote, and they don't understand the strategy and the tactics of, decent lobbying, selling your ideas to people and, carrying them along in what you do. So I believe that we are gradually coming to that, that level in politics in Nigeria, where people have got to begin to sell ideas rather than personalities. And so when that happens, you get the diaspora, you get women and all of that. So it's ongoing conversation, but on the part of the NIDCOM, for example, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, that is supposed to be, organizing the table and getting all of these things working, I believe that they also need to live up to their own biddings in terms of, educating and sensitizing the legislators that there is actually nothing to be fearful about, nothing to be apprehensive about, and they should do that across board, across all political parties, because as you know, to get the bill passed, you have to have 2/3 majority of the House. And there is not a single party in Nigeria that commands 2/3 of the seats in both the lower and the upper house. So it has to be across board. And rather than concentrating on just one political party because you happen to be affiliated to that political party, I think that is part of, the issue playing out here.
Now, and as we dig in deep quickly here, other Nigerians like yourself, how does this sit with them? Have you been able to gauge, their emotions? Are they discouraged? Are they optimistic that something will ultimately, give to see that this is brought back to the table?
Yeah, well, you do have it's a divided a mixed feeling, I would say. You have Nigerians out here who would say, well, it doesn't surprise me. Didn't I tell you guys? You are just wasting your time. Those guys haven't got any clue, and I wasn't expecting a different outcome. There are those who are very, very offended because they believed seriously that we had crossed this stage of trying to convince people about the sense of enfranchising the Nigerian diaspora, considering how critical they are in the development, the accelerated development of Nigeria, be it in terms of finances, like you mentioned, be it in terms of tech, social and cultural. I mean, Nigerians in diaspora. So nobody should be in the business of convincing anybody as to how much it makes sense. So you have that group of diaspora that actually feel seriously, disappointed, and then they are still ready to fight. Then there are also a group that you can say have actually given up. Okay, it's like, well, whatever you guys do out there is your business. I'm going to keep my money here. I'm not going to be part of the development of Nigeria. But I believe that once the right thing begins to happen, you are going to be able to, win those guys over. But
now let's start talking about the right things. It was, I think, the last election, specifically leading up to that last election in 2019, Nigeria's Consul General to the U.S. said the lack of credible database is what's actually affecting the implementation of diaspora voting. And is that still the case? This is 2022, and technology-wise, I mean, looking at some of the good that COVID has given to the world, should Nigerians still be looking at this statement by the Consul General to the U.S. in 2019?
Even in 2019, that argument was not a valid one. It wasn't a valid one because I'll give you two examples. Number one example is the banking sector in Nigeria. And I am in a privileged position to, make a very assertive statement about the fact that Nigeria has one of the most effective and efficient banking system in the world, where a transaction is carried out now on the minute. We send money from here, from one account to the other. The next minute, the money is on that account. This was a technology implemented in Nigeria and has continued to do well. Now, phone reception isn't very much of a problem anymore. So, and then the third one, if you allow me, is the machine-readable passports that Nigeria have that captures, the data of people. Even in 2019, it was already in place. So these are bits and pieces of evidence to tell you that if the will is there, that, building a credible database to allow for Nigerian diaspora voting is certainly doable, and it is being done in other countries. And Nigerians, for Christ's sake, are part of those driving them in other countries. So the capacity and the resources are there to get it done in Nigeria. We just have to have the will to do so.
Some have expressed fears that politicians may use such windows to their advantage at the detriment of the process and the country. For example, bringing votes from country A into the country and vice versa. Have you also weighed in such possibilities?
There might be some points about that, but there are also some points about rigging of election even within Nigeria. And I'm not talking of just Nigeria. In other parts of the world, there is always the possibility of elections being rigged. And that is why you would have to have checks and balances to ensure that that is not the case. Now, Sly, there is every chance that when I walk out of this door, making my way home from work, that a car can run over me. Now, is that a reason not to make my way out of the door and use the public, the public space? No, I just have to take precautions. So it is the same way that you foresee or make the projection that there might be rigging, but then you find ways to forestall them. Using that as an excuse is just not acceptable. Yes, the ongoing NIN, National Identification Number registration, there have been some allegations of, our cousins in, Niger Republic and all of that being used, being registered and getting ready for Nigerian election. I know that some legislators have some legitimate concern about that, but these are things that could be investigated and actually taken care of, and are certainly not an excuse to, turn down something like diaspora voting that is very critical to, involving Nigerians in diaspora in the further development of our fatherland.
Just like other Nigerians, you've been living, outside Nigeria for years now. Let us in on what obtains in other countries in terms of, either absentee voters or diaspora voting.
Quite simple, Sly. What you do is they create a window, a long corridor of perhaps a month or two before the actual election, where individuals can actually go to the embassy or order the voting materials at your embassy in the country where you live, and then, cast your vote, and then it is transmitted almost instantaneously to the INEC, the equivalent of INEC in other countries. It is as simple as that. Now, of course, there is also the process of indicating that you are interested in voting. That is pre-registration. And then on the day itself, you cast your vote. So you don't even have to leave your home to be able to do that. So it is as simple as that. And is it doable for Nigeria? Certainly, because there are even more complicated things that will do in Nigeria than this simple ABC process.
So why do you think Nigeria or any other African country should adopt diaspora voting? I'm quite sure some politicians may have asked you in your position as, Chair-Emeritus of Nigerians living in the diaspora.
Well, you have those that are genuine, that ask genuine questions, and of course they get the answer. And in the end, at the end of every conversation, they actually get convinced that, number one, this is doable. Number two, it is the right thing to do. But like I mentioned, galvanizing them, lobbying them is also something that appears to be absent. And I do hope that, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, will learn from this and actually get things better organized. I mean, in terms of the lobby work across the board that is required. I think the essence of that also, was an issue in this particular circle. But give and take, the diaspora, they are now jigged up, and I believe that they will do whatever has to be done to get this, accomplished. The last word has certainly not been spoken on the diaspora voting.
In all of what we've discussed, do you think that diaspora voting may have been rejected owing to the absence of logistics, and perhaps since online voting is not in the Constitution too, you think that decision was ill-informed on facts that you have so far shared?
It may be that there are some sections of the legislative arm that are ill-informed. I have no doubt about that, and that is why I said that the arm of government, the entity of government that is responsible for diaspora affairs, has got to actually work across boards, breaking it down even up to state level, where they are supposed to also have, state diaspora commission. So that, you hold, breakfast with them, you hold lunch with them, information campaign, bring them across, because we do that when they come out here in the diaspora. And those of them that come out here in the diaspora are, weaponized sufficiently, to do the right thing. They were probably the only ones that voted for it. So a lot of work can now restart to do the right thing and get it done.
So how optimistic are you as Nigeria prepares towards the next election? 2023, for some politicians and some close watchers, even Nigerians like yourself in diaspora, they're saying this is a make or mar election. What are the key indices you think Nigerians should look out for as they go to the polls?
Well, as they go to the poll, Nigerians should know that we have come to a point in our national political history where personalities shouldn't matter anymore. What should matter is what the individual that is asking us to vote him or her into office is bringing to the table. So far, there hasn't been, much conversations around that. What with the conversation that Nigerians have been seeing from those clamoring to, to lead the nation, is about the personalities of those people, how long they've been in politics, who they have managed to, help into one position or the other, not necessarily the intellectual baggage that they are bringing with them, and of course, their pedigree. What have they been able to manage? What have they been able to accomplish in public service, in private, in the private sector, and so on and so forth? That's what Nigerians should begin. And then empathy. We need to check out for leaders with empathy. Do they really care about Nigeria? And then, and Nigerians. And then the point of actually being able to communicate effectively with the Nigerian people. Nigeria doesn't need a shy president. Nigeria needs a president that will be able to communicate with them, because it is important to reassure people, especially in times of crisis. And Nigeria is more or less in permanent crisis. So the next president should be one that should be able to engage Nigerians effectively, show empathy, but also have a sense of strategic leadership. In a diverse country as Nigeria, you do not ask for less than this.
Lastly, before I let you go, Nweke, if these candidates were to have a debate leading up to the elections, what are the key, issues or points that Nigerians would want these people, men and women, to give answers or share their concerns on?
The first issue that the next president of Nigeria has to concentrate on is reconciling Nigeria. Nigeria is so very divided now that we are at the verge of a breakup. It's not going to happen. We will ultimately pull together. But we can only pull together if we have a president that has that unifying attitude, one that can bring people together. That's number one. And when they come together, they will begin to talk openly about the things that unite us rather than concentrating on the things that divide us. That's number one, dialogue. Number two, our constitution is defective as a nation. And I do not know anybody who has said otherwise. It's just that some sessions are saying, let us patch it up and just continue to manage. Not everything in the constitution is wrong. So let us concentrate on the ones that are right and so on and so forth. No, that's a wrong approach. The constitution needs to be overhauled. It has to be fit for purpose. It has to answer the Nigerian question as far as unity of purpose is concerned. At the moment, that is lacking. National ethos is also another issue. apart from our, national anthem, there is nothing that actually Nigerians can all relate to. We need to find that it is doable. There are other diverse countries in the world. They have managed to find their national ethos. Nigeria needs a leader that is able to get people together and begin to work towards one common ethos that all Nigerians can relate to. This then creates that oneness that is lacking. And so overnight, you begin to see the disappearance of all these agitations for be it Biafra, be it Oduduwa, be it a separate Arewa or whatever name they give to it. So I believe that these are surmountable challenges, and Nigeria has the right kind of individuals to drive all of these changes and set Nigeria afoot for the greatness that it has missed all of these decades.
I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Collins Nweke, Chair-Emeritus, Board of Trustees, Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, Europe.
Thank you, Sulai, for having me. Always a pleasure.
Well, coming up here on VSA, we'll be talking to